Welcome back, and today we are looking at the RE 2005 and the Italian tech tree at 6.0. This is one of those vehicles that has been completely over-tiered. The flight performance is really not that fantastic. It's very comparable to something like the 4.3 Spitfire Mark 9 that you will find in the British tech tree. In the end, this doesn't mean, of course, that this thing is completely unusable. It's actually very user-friendly because, well, your enemies don't really climb that much and you turn a lot better than people expect you to. Sure, the sustained turn rate is about the same as something like the lower tier Spitfires. However, at this BR, most of your enemies will have more power, but they will be a little bit heavier. On average, the planes just turn worse at higher BRs. Sure, they have more power, they have more speed, they have more guns and all those good things, and they will probably win in a sustained fight, but when you look at the actual turning performance at any given speed, most of the time the lower tier variants will turn better because they end up being a lot lighter than the higher tier variants. Look at the Spitfires. You have the Mark 5, which turns probably the best. Mark 9 turns a little bit worse. Mark 14 turns a little bit worse. And then the Mark 22 turns even worse than that. Sure, the power is exceptional. It will be in a lot of a better position. But in general, you will be able to turn into a lot of people with this vehicle. The only issue is that you will run out of speed doing so very fast, because the engine power of this thing is not exceptional. The speed of this thing is not very good, so you really just kind of are a glorified zero with a lot of cannons on board, and which is why you will see me today fly like this a lot. I will just park myself in front of people and kind of invite them in. You don't want people to boom and zoom you, you want people to tail sit you in this thing, as long as they are not LF Mark 9s, but we'll get to that in a second here. This thing is nimble, but just like with the last two videos on the A5 and the G91R4, it's on the clock. It's very maneuverable, it stalls very well, it's basically good in all departments other than the engine. This thing used to be completely broken because of the climb rate that it had. It got nerfed, rightfully so. It's at 6.0. Do I agree with it? Is it over-tiered? Yes, it's over-tiered, but at the same time it's one of those planes that's extremely annoying to play into, so I don't really mind that it's so high, because it's just so brain dead to play. It's a very aggressive and suicidal plane, and if you are flying something that's not very maneuverable, it's extremely annoying to play into, mainly because it can almost always get its guns on you whenever it wants, and many people just climb with this thing and then full commit head on. And there is very little you can do, and this plane needs to take those head-ons as well, because it's just not fast enough to really dodge it. It probably won't get another angle, which is why I try to just sit in front of people, and you will see me open this way versus almost everyone. Now, if you do this against the wrong opponent, something like a J2 M3 can just kind of throttle drop behind you, and you are gonna have issues with it, because he can just kind of sit behind you, use its power, and it will drain your balls. You don't want that to happen, but most of your enemies don't really play that way. Most of the enemies try to boom and zoom you, and when you try to just kind of sit in front of them, and you can tell I do this with almost everyone, I open by giving people my ass. And this, in my experience, has brought me the most success. Sure, it's very risky, and if you do it versus the wrong person, you're probably going to get clapped. It also needs you to be somewhat aware of your enemy, what they can do, know the planes that you're flying into. Because if you dodge a little bit wrong and you give them your ass, you just kind of give them a free kill. And you want to avoid that. I mean, obviously, well, if you like dying, then, well, I mean, good on you. I'm not gonna king shame you, but I'm not a big fan of it. And you can tell that I'm just going too slow. These guys, if they have good aim, it doesn't matter how well my plane turns, because I am basically floating in place. There's so many people around. I'm just dodging everyone. I'm still going 400 because I'm slowly decreasing my altitude and turning all the altitude that I have into speed, so I can actually keep dodging. But now I'm going 400. The fight kind of stabilizes and everyone starts flying away from me. All these guys, except for the TAR 152, outclimbs me. But the TAR is just much quicker than me. We have a jet in front of us. We have a K4 on the front and on the left. We are completely boxed in, and I'm just hoping that one of them goes for the head-on, so I can get one out of the party, basically. He goes head-on, he dodges. He basically gives me a free shot, so we recommit to it, and then we look back to the TAR 152. Again, we are going to open pretty aggressively, but I had to fly towards him for a little bit. Same thing here, turn in front of him, he does take the bait, and then we go back to looking at the jet, because we need to dodge him. Finally, some sound again. I'm not sure why the sound managed to not record in the previous clips, but the rest of the video, except for the last clip, should have some background sound again, so it shouldn't be as empty as it was at the start. And here we are above two guys that I kind of don't want to fight normally, but when you have an altitude advantage, you can just kind of stall them both out. This plane is pretty fun to use once you have position, once you have energy, because everyone just kind of thinks they can turn with you, and you can just kind of bait everyone into fighting you. We stall out the Spitfire, and I'm going to be going for him first, because if I go for the F8F, I'm going to get a Spitfire LF Mark 9 on my 6, which is not something you want to deal with, but again, we will get to that in a minute here. F8F underneath us sees that I'm tangled up with the Spitfire. He instantly goes back up for us. He tries to dive out afterwards, but he waited a little bit too long. Energy retention of the F8F is also not fantastic, so he ends up eating shit. C-Fire, not really dangerous. That's basically a worse version of me. Also worse guns. Lower BR as well. We just kind of go up. We have an energy advantage. We go up and over. He's essentially stalled out. We do use our flaps a little bit. And I have started on the flap guide. Give me a week or two and it should be done. If there's anything that you really want to see when it's about flaps, let me know in the comments. Maybe I have forgotten and I can add it afterwards. Now we have an F2G and two P51s on our right. We are diving in. We have a lot of speed and I'm going for the F2G first. Because that guy is kind of presenting himself. He's the highest and I can probably kill this. And then break off and fly towards the two guys on my 6. Now he does react the second we start hitting him. It's a little bit too late for him. It's so completely jovial. And we're just going to put our 600 kilometers an hour into a bit of a climb. Now there's two P51s on my 6 and I'm suspecting them to be D30s, but I'm not entirely sure because I wasn't really paying attention to the BR this game and I think there are some 6.3s, but I'm not sure. So I'm gonna do the stupid but fun thing and just kinda tangle with them both. P51 first one comes in, it is a D30, we merge, we go up over the second one as well, D30 as well. So what do? Well, we want to be aggressive and we want to kill them as quickly as we can. I go for the first one, I miss my shots, that's very unlucky. And then I don't get the kill on the second one either. Now this kind of fucked me over, because now I need to focus on both of them. Teammate comes in however, and here comes the Spitfire that I thought was RTB. So now it's still 2v1. I'm gonna be pitching in front of the P51 D30. He's going very slow however, so I'm just gonna pray that I get out of his guns. I'm not gonna full commit head on the guy, even in that kind of position. But now I get the Spitfire on my 6. Now he is probably gonna kill the D30, and I just need to fly with this LF Mark 9 on my ass and see how long I can survive. Now this is a fight that's not really winnable. I'm gonna see if I can maybe reverse him, but he is throttle dropping. And when a Spitfire throttle drops you, when it's an LF Mark 9, you're gonna have an issue. So at this point, I'm not really worried about the sustained. I'm not really worried about doing anything but bait this guy as well as I can. I'm looking at the map. I see that the Focke-Wulf is coming in, so I'm just gonna pull him up, make him as absolutely slow as possible, and he just digs him down. The LF Mark 9 is essentially you but better. The LF Mark 9 turns about the same, but the power of that thing is so much better than you that if it starts on your 6 and is going slower than you, you're not gonna reverse it. You're not gonna outclimb it. You're not gonna outturn it. There is really, just like Napoleon says, there is nothing we can do. The Spitfire LF Mark 9 is your absolute nightmare. Something like the Yak 3U will also absolutely rinse your ass, but it's a plane that you can at least do something against, because the matchup is a little bit more diverse. Sure, it has much more power, it will win the fight very easily, but at least when it comes to those very low speed stall shots and stuff, just like with the Spitfire on our ass just there, you can actually somewhat pull out of his nose, provided you don't go too slow and you just end up stalling in front of him. But that goes for everything. The LF Mark 9 and the Yak 3U are some of the roughest matchups you can ever run into. This plane is all about using your plane decently and kind of surprising your enemies and baiting them into doing things. If they predict what you are going to be doing, you're gonna do a whole lot of nothing against most of your enemies. Now the planes that aren't very good at this BR, like the Sea-Fires for example, and just most of the planes that you fight when you are down tier to like 5.0, 5.3, you can hang with quite nicely. The issue is that at 6.0 you are gonna be running into 6.3s, P51Hs, F2Gs, Hornets, Tempest Mark IIs, you know, all those planes with crazy climb rates, crazy speed, and they really just kind of fuck you over. Because if they don't try to dogfight you, you're instantly just completely useless. Now we are stuck with the Sea-Fire, and we get position instantly, because that was the main thing here. Because I know that the Sea-Fire is a bit heavier. He doesn't turn that fantastically, and the performance of that thing isn't great either. He has a lot of speed in him, so I'm just trying to sit on his 6 so that I can drain him and kind of even the playing field, and I drop my flaps for a singular shot. I don't want to use my flaps too much. The flaps help your turning performance tremendously on this thing. Just don't use them too much. Your speed and your energy is already limited. If you use your flaps too much in this thing, you are just gonna stall yourself out and you are just going to be eating shit. Now, if you're wondering why I'm flying around with my flaps down as I'm in a straight line and trying to gain speed, I honestly have no other word for it than skill issue. I just fat fingered my flap key and I didn't end up pulling them in. Instead, I ended up flying with them down for like 2 minutes. Luckily, it didn't really end up fucking us over. So we are now just gonna go and engage the next one. We have an AM1, not really a big threat to us, but we're just gonna dive kind of in front of him and then just stall him out. We want him to pitch up so that he loses his energy. He drops all of his ordnance, so we know that he's committed to the fight. We go up over his nose, and then once we're like kind of below and behind him, I start pulling in, because now if he wants to go head on with us, he's just gonna stall himself out. He is not able to do that, so instead he goes horizontal trying to keep his speed, but he's too slow, too easy of a shot, and we end up gunning him down. Now we do the same thing to the P-47M. He is completely strapped with bombs, and this guy is actually going to be committed to his cars, and he is not going to be dropping any of it. So I pull on after him, and I neck G a little bit to not lose control. Still lose control, pitch up. I was waiting for my guns to go online basically, but if I had done that, I would have rammed right into him, so we're not gonna do that. So instead, we're just gonna do another loop, and we're gonna gun him down right now. Now, I do want to be careful of his bomb load, because he does... And here we are in the dreaded full up tier 7.0. Jets versus this thing is an absolute pain in the ass. My random squad mate gets gunned down, and I notice that he just suddenly vanished. And the F4U7 is kind of on our 6, so again, I just missed a shot. And we're gonna try and pull after him. Now this is kind of risky because there's a lot of guys very close to us. We have the F4U as well as the F8F on our right hand side over there. Luckily they are ground pounding, but I needed to kill the F4U7 right there. He was engaging us, he was gonna be running it down on me, and that is not something that I can ignore. I can survive maybe another pass of him, but then I'm just gonna be too slow and he's gonna be gunning me down. So I was just kind of betting on the fact that the F8F as well as the F4U were just kind of going to ignore me, at least for long enough to the point where I can kind of reset the fight. Luckily, that's exactly what happened. So we go into the clouds, we kind of disengage, and they go back to ground pounding. And now I can just go and kind of bully these two guys. So we have an F8F as well as an F4U7, and I'm gonna go for the F8F first because he just has a much better climb rate and it accelerates much better. Also keep in mind the F8F got buffed last patch. The thermals aren't nearly as bad and the engine doesn't overheat as much anymore, meaning that that thing is a bit of a menace now. And yes, I will fly it out relatively soon here. So we go up over him. We basically just stall him out. There's nothing he can really do. I have the energy to just turn inside of him. He is still going for the ground units. So I just kind of shoot at him until he explodes. F4U7 comes in. We go sideways. We go up over his nose. We try to stall him out. And because he just doesn't have the energy, I can just be very aggressive and instantly get a shot on him. Now, what's left is an F84 and an F4U in absolute orbit. Now this is a fight that I wasn't really looking forward to. Also F8F just kind of, yeah, I don't really know. But he slams into the ground, and then we have the F4U7 I think on the across the map, and F84 and something else. But and I'm not like doing the funny haha hee hee. My game just crashed. I'm like climbing over there, and I wasn't really thinking I was gonna win it anyway, but at least I wanted you to see like how painful it is to fight a jet in it. And my game just kind of crashed. I loaded up the game again very quickly, tried to get back in the game, but it didn't even give me the prompt of like, do you want to return? Unfortunate for us, we took a massive L, skill issue I guess. And we go into the next match. Zetsubu on the other side of the map just got one shot by a 50 cal. Absolutely fantastic. He asked me to not put it in the video. Here you are, fuck you. K4 coming down on us. Fire Brew 33. Absolute champion of a player. He does the right thing and he just breaks off. That's how easy it is to deal with this plane. You just kind of dive on it, and the second you notice that it's going, it sees you, you just kind of say, nah, I'm gone. So he flies away. We're gonna go for the Yak 3U because that thing is just an absolute pain in the dick to deal with. And he goes for someone else, so I just get the ability to come in from the side and just kind of spray him down until he turns into spare parts. Now, where are we going? We don't want to dive too much, but our entire team is at altitude. Our team is looking pretty solid actually, so which one do I go for, the FOU or the Tempest? It depends on the Tempest. I have a feeling it's a Tempest Mark II, so I want to go for him first. The FOU is also on the right and he's ground pounding, so I have a bit of a feeling that I can go for the Tempest here. And then after engaging the Tempest, I can use my dive speed to fly towards the Corsair over there. And that's kind of what ends up happening. It's not as foolproof as I thought it would be. This guy doesn't have the speed to do anything about us. And we just kind of, well, we just kind of shit on him. And then we fly over to the FOU, but he's on fire. He got shot down by another guy, so I'm just gonna be as evasive in the head-on. But he burns out. And I just kind of dodge the head-on and we fly away. It's your returning champion, Firebrew 33, and he's been sitting like 1.5 to 2 kilometers above me, just like that. And he's been not diving, not engaging, just kind of flying straight. He finally engages, so we go underneath him. I'm not gonna try to do the funny, I'm gonna sit in front of you, because he's probably just gonna throttle drop. And I can be defensive all the way down. But I'm just going to pitch into him because he's taking a little bit too wide of an approach. And he's going to try to like do a horizontal flat turny stall thing. I'm almost stalling out. I can't really point my guns where I want them. I get a few glancing blows in. And I'm just going to dive out. I'm going to pick up my speed, cool the engine for a few seconds. Sea Fury comes in and this is going to prompt me to be a little bit more aggressive. I want to fly one into the opposite direction so that it takes longer for the Sea Fury to reach us. And I'm just going to sit in front of the K4 this time. And I want to just kill him as quickly as humanly possible. Now, I notice that he's kind of indecisive. He ends up going vertical. And this means that I can just pull up after him. He doesn't have the separation for this. So we gun him down completely. And the Sea Fury just bails the second he sees his teammate die. Goes for the Key 84 instead. I'm not entirely sure why. But at the end of the day, that's what gave me this kill. So we pitch up into him. We kind of just... I mean, he's busy looking at someone else, so it's not really rocket science here. It's just third partying. And then we spray at this guy until he finally explodes. But unfortunately, this is what most of your kills are going to be looking like in this thing. Sure, you can do the epic reversal montage shots. And that's going to be a good portion of my kills. And just spraying people down. You have 320mm in the nose. It's very easy to dispose of people. But you have to keep in mind that you are at a big deficit when it comes to your actual flight performance. So I go underneath the Spitfire because I noticed that he's going head on with someone else. Was trying to just sneak in a free shot basically, but he kind of goes underneath us. And at this point it's just a matter of pulling into him. It's a Griffin Spit, so I can actually kind of just slam the elevator. And slamming the elevator is actually the entire guide for this plane. It's not a very brain intensive vehicle, especially in a team setting. If you fly next to people, this thing is just so incredibly brain dead. It's kind of funny, but that's also why I don't mind it being such a high BR, because the skill floor of this thing is basically below ground level. Of course, when you get up tier, especially to jets and just 6.3 and 6.0 planes in general that are pretty fast, you're just gonna be flying around with your dick in your hand the entire game because you're not fast enough to catch them, you don't really outclimb them, and if they end up actually climbing at the start of the game, they will just push you into the deck until you finally kiss a tree. Also, bless up Gaijin for removing AA from forward airfields. That has been an absolute pain in the ass for the last 2 years, but this has been an absolute breath of fresh air. Main airfields still have the airfield AA, not that big of an issue. The forward airfields having it was an absolute pain in the ass. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.